My name's Mark, and I've been married to my wife, Rachel, for 15 years. For most of that time, I thought we had something pretty incredible. Our family has always been the center of my world, our two amazing teenage daughters, a solid home in a nice neighborhood, steady jobs. We had it all. Rachel works as a voice translator at a film studio, and I've been with a private security company for years now. Honestly, I felt lucky every single day. We were healthy, happy, and financially secure. Our house was beautiful, our life stable. I didn't think things could get much better. After our youngest daughter was born, Rachel put on a little weight. But to me, that never mattered. Her striking blue eyes still had that same magic. She'd switched to wearing glasses instead of contacts because they bothered her when she worked on documents. And honestly, those glasses only made her eyes more mesmerizing. I was crazy about her. Still am in some ways. I truly believed she loved me just as deeply. From the outside looking in, we looked like that perfect family. Two wonderful kids, no money stress, a house full of laughter. It felt like a dream. But then, things started to change. A while back, Rachel started going out every other Friday with some of her female coworkers. She called it their girls' night. They'd hit up a rotation of local bars to unwind after the work week. She always framed it as harmless fun, just chatting and blowing off steam. I never saw a reason to object. Most Fridays, I'd be home by 4:30 to take care of the girls. I'd make dinner, help them with homework, and honestly, I enjoyed those evenings. Rachel usually got back around 8, and then our weekends were reserved for family time, Saturday night dinners out, movie marathons, you name it. But recently, those Fridays started stretching later. Instead of coming home at 8, she'd roll in closer to 10. And it was obvious she'd had a few drinks. I noticed, sure, but I didn't press. She was still affectionate, still smiling that familiar smile when she walked through the door. That smile could melt anyone. I told myself she just needed a little escape now and then. I trusted her. I figured it was all innocent. Then came the Monday morning that changed everything. I got an email. No subject line. No name, just signed. A friend. I almost deleted it. But something made me hesitate. I opened it. The message read, "I saw your wife at the Black Crow on Friday. She seemed to be enjoying herself. But what caught my attention was how much time she spent dancing with one specific guy, someone from her group. I thought you'd want to know. I took a photo. Take a look. If you still think there's nothing going on, then feel free to ignore this." My stomach dropped. There was a photo attached. I didn't want to open it. I was already sick with doubt. But I couldn't stop myself. The second I opened it, I knew the person who sent it had tried to stay hidden. The photo was slightly off-center, almost like it was taken in secret. In the background, I recognized the group, people Rachel had mentioned before. Men and women, all gathered around a long table. But my eyes went straight to the dance floor. There, on the right side, was Rachel, wearing her beige blouse with the red flowers and green leaves. The brown slacks she always said were her favorite. That was the same outfit she wore that Friday, the night she got home around 10:30, hugged me at the door, and smiled like everything was fine. But in the photo, it wasn't fine. She was wrapped in the arms of a tall, younger guy. Her arms were around his neck, his body pressed right up against hers. And it wasn't just a friendly hug, they were grinding. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't remember a single time she'd danced like that with me. Not in public. Not in private. And the look on her face, she looked happy. Comfortable. Like she wanted to be there, pressed up against this stranger. They were staring into each other's eyes like no one else in the world mattered. My heart dropped. This was my wife. The mother of my daughters. Letting another man touch her like that. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew started to crumble. Rachel never danced with me like that, not in public, not ever. So why was she letting some guy, possibly a stranger, hold her like that? Or was he not a stranger at all? That thought hit me like a freight train, and the doubt took root fast. My mind spiraled out of control, imagining all kinds of scenes with Rachel and other men, scenarios I didn't want to believe could be real. My stomach churned so violently, I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up my breakfast. My wife. The woman I'd trusted completely. Acting like that, in front of everyone. Was she really cheating on me? How could she do this, not just to me, but to our daughters too? My head was flooded with questions. Who was that guy? Did they work together? How long had this been going on? Why him? Why now? For the next half hour, I stayed holed up in the bathroom of my office, trying to calm myself. The chaos in my mind was deafening. Slowly, different emotions began to rise: disappointment, sorrow, and then fury. And underneath all of it, a craving for revenge. I felt like I was coming apart at the seams. One minute, I wanted to confront Rachel and scream. The next, I wanted to break down and beg her to stop whatever this was. Then came the darker thoughts: divorce. Walking away. But even then, a small voice in me whispered about forgiveness, about maybe finding a way back. I was a wreck. But at some point, I forced myself to breathe and get a grip. I couldn't act on emotion. Not yet. If I did something rash, I might destroy more than I already feared was broken. I needed facts. Proof. Real, solid truth before I said anything to Rachel. And so I made a decision. I wouldn't tell her what I knew. Not yet. I'd watch. I'd wait. And I'd find out the truth for myself. I already knew she hadn't been honest, not completely. She'd let me believe her Friday nights were just girls' nights. She never once mentioned guys were part of the group. That alone wasn't nothing. It was a lie by omission, sure, but a lie all the same. The film studio where Rachel worked was only a few blocks from my own office. Since I'm often on the move for work, it wasn't hard to set up a little stakeout. So, the next day around 11:30 a.m., I parked at the far end of her office lot. My company car has tinted windows, so I felt safe just sitting there, watching. I kept an eye on the exit until 1 o'clock, but she never came out. I did the same thing for the rest of the week. Then came Friday. At exactly 12:15, Rachel walked out with 3 other people, 2 men and 1 woman. They all climbed into a sleek black BMW. Rachel sat up front, right next to the driver. Without hesitation, I followed them. They headed downtown and pulled into the parking lot of a high-end restaurant. I parked across the street and watched as they laughed and chatted their way inside. From my angle, I could see her clearly, light-hearted, smiling, touching the driver's arm as they talked. And I knew in that moment, he was the same guy from the photo. That hit harder than anything else. At 2 o'clock, they came back out. Rachel was still walking beside him, looking relaxed, even happy. The way they moved, the way they interacted, it didn't scream coworkers. It looked like 2 couples out for lunch. Something about that bothered me even more than the photo. They all drove back to the studio and went inside like it was just another normal day. Technically, she hadn't done anything wrong. But it was clear she hadn't told me the whole truth, and it gnawed at me. That evening, Rachel didn't go out after work. She came home right at 5:15, cheerful as ever, smiling like she always did. And me? I played it cool. It took everything in me not to crack, not to let all my questions spill out. After dinner, while we were watching TV, I casually asked her about her day, and specifically about lunch. For a moment, just a flicker, she looked unsure. Then she recovered and told me she'd eaten a tuna sandwich at her desk, the same one she'd packed that morning. She lied. I looked right into those blue eyes I'd loved for 15 years, and she lied without blinking. My heart was breaking, but I still wanted to reach for her, to believe her, to hug her and make it all go away. That's what love does to you. But I held back. Instead, I changed the subject. Talked about my day. Acted normal. Rachel didn't seem to notice anything was off. That night we were close, twice. She acted like the same loving wife I'd always known. On Saturday, we took the girls to the zoo. We laughed, took pictures, shared ice cream. For a few precious hours, I forgot all about the week before. But by the following Friday, I was back in surveillance mode. I made sure to be home when our daughters got back from school around 4:15. I ordered pizza, made sure they were settled in, and told them I had to swing by the office. They were old enough to stay home on their own now, and I trusted them to lock up and take care of things. Meanwhile, I had somewhere else to be. I knew our daughters would be up in their rooms by the time I got back later that night. At exactly 5 p.m., I grabbed my keys, slid into my car, and drove straight to Rachel's office. I didn't have to wait long. I saw her walk out, get into her Toyota, and head off, away from our house. Just like clockwork, she was going to meet her coworkers for another one of those girls' nights. There was a small convoy of cars between us, 6 in total, all heading in the same direction. It made tailing her almost too easy. 10 minutes later, they all turned into a parking lot outside a spot called the Glass Shoe. Kind of a cross between a restaurant and a bar, depending on what kind of night you were looking for. I parked at the opposite end of the lot, out of sight, and waited until they all went inside. Then I got out and did a slow walk around the building, taking in the scene. The place was set apart from other buildings, surrounded on 2 sides by streets and on the other 2 by a neat cedar hedge, about 5 feet tall. There were parking spaces right up against it. That's when I saw it, again. The black BMW. Parked by itself, off to the side near the hedge. Not mixed in with the rest of the cars. The same BMW from the lunch outing the previous week. The same guy's car. I also noticed there were separate doors, one for the restaurant, one for the bar. Emergency exits were at the back, but those were clearly locked. There was another entrance near the main lot, but Rachel and her group had gone in through the restaurant door. I headed back to my SUV and changed into the outfit I'd prepped. Black windbreaker, baseball cap, dark sunglasses. I even popped in a mouthguard, like the kind boxers use, to slightly distort the shape of my face. It made speaking and drinking tough, but I wasn't planning on doing much of either. I checked myself in the rearview mirror. No one would recognize me. I waited another hour before heading inside the bar section. It was loud, dimly lit, and alive with energy, the perfect place to blend into the background. And there she was. Rachel. Sitting with a group near the dance floor. Laughing. Drinking. She looked so relaxed, so in her element. And right next to her was him. The same guy from the lunch. The same guy from the photo. Seeing them together like that again crushed me. I picked a table in the far back, dark, quiet, perfect for watching without being seen. The people around me were mostly lost in their own drinks and thoughts. I knew I'd be invisible here. Soon enough, the music kicked in and folks made their way to the dance floor. And then, just like before, I saw Rachel get up and start dancing, with him. The 3 other men at their table smirked knowingly as they watched. Like this wasn't new. Like they'd seen it all before. Rachel and this guy weren't just dancing. They were tangled up in each other, her arms draped around his neck, his hands low on her waist. It wasn't dancing, it was foreplay. Eventually, the rest of the group thinned out. Only 4 remained, Rachel, another woman, and 2 men. 2 couples. Both dancing slow, close, intimate. And I saw it. He kissed her. Right there. Right in the middle of the dance floor. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear. She nodded. Then they left, hand in hand. I followed. It was already dark by then. I kept my distance as they walked to the last row of the lot. Right to that black BMW. Parked neatly beside the cedar hedge. They knew exactly what they were doing. No curious eyes. No interruptions. I moved slowly, keeping close to the hedge, weaving between parked cars until I got to the back of his BMW. It was quiet. Too quiet. The windows were too tinted to see anything. But then I heard them, soft voices, muffled sounds. I froze. Debating. Should I catch them in the act? Should I barge in? Or should I just walk away? And then, the car began to move. Not fast. Not a lot. But just enough. Rhythmic. Subtle. But unmistakable. That was it. My blood boiled. My body moved before I could think. I yanked the door open. The dome light flicked on, and there they were. Rachel. My wife. Flat on her back, that guy on top of her. Both froze. The color drained from her face as she stared up at me, wide-eyed, horrified. I ripped off my glasses. Pulled out the mouthpiece. She knew it was me. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Oh God. Please just don't do anything you'll regret." She scrambled for words. "It meant nothing. Please, just wait for me at home. Please." I didn't say a word. I shut the car door, turned around, and walked away. I walked away without saying a word, heading straight to my car. By the time I pulled out of the parking lot, Rachel was already halfway to me, calling out, yelling for me to wait. I didn't stop. Less than 5 minutes after I got home, she burst through the front door, looking a complete mess, hair tangled, clothes wrinkled, face streaked with tears. She stumbled toward me, crying, begging, her voice shaking as she apologized over and over again. She swore she never meant to hurt me. That what happened meant nothing. That she still loved me, loved our family, and that she was so sorry for breaking the vows we made. She said if she'd ever suspected I was being unfaithful, maybe she would have acted out too. As if that somehow justified what she did. All I felt was rage. Pure, silent rage. Even as she pleaded with me, sobbing, saying she loved me more than anything, that I was her whole world, I felt myself shut down. She kept talking about how much she regretted it, how it was a mistake, how she'd do anything to fix what was broken. Her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, trembling with every breath. But I didn't care. Not right then. I told her flat out, what she did to our marriage was unforgivable. I needed answers. "Who is he?" I demanded. "And how long has this been going on?" The only relief I got was that she stayed on the couch, away from me. Because I wasn't sure what I'd do if she got too close. She whispered his name, Chris. Said he worked at the studio. She begged for understanding. Swore it wasn't supposed to happen. Claimed it never meant anything. She admitted she'd been hiding the truth about those Friday nights for a long time. Said it had been going on for 2 years, these so-called girls' nights. That weren't just women. She tried to tell me her love for me had never changed. But I couldn't look past the public nature of her betrayal. It wasn't just what she did, it was how many people had probably seen it. Coworkers. Friends. People who might look at me and laugh, knowing what my wife was doing behind my back. I told her that. I told her that whatever she did in the dark was now out in the open. That she hadn't just betrayed me in private, she'd humiliated me in public. The shame wasn't just ours anymore. She broke down again, begging me to forgive her. Vowing that it would never happen again. Pleading to save our marriage, our family, our future. She said she'd do whatever it took. But I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and turned away. I told her I needed space to think. I reminded her that this whole disaster started the moment she chose to betray me. That she threw everything away the night she let another man into her arms. Then I heard it, a sudden cry, a moan, so raw and desperate that I spun around. Rachel was on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Her body shaking with every gasp. It nearly broke me. A part of me wanted to go to her, to pick her up, to hold her. But I knew better. I didn't trust myself to stay in that house another minute. So I left. That night, I checked into a nearby hotel. I didn't sleep. Just laid there, staring at the ceiling, going over everything again and again. The next morning, I called my secretary and told her I'd be out for the day. I needed time. I stayed holed up in that room until around noon, when I forced myself to eat something at the hotel restaurant. On the way to the office, I drove past our house, and that's when I saw a green Toyota parked in the driveway. Francine's car. Rachel's sister. A small part of me felt relieved. At least the girls had someone with them. Someone who hadn't lied to them. What I didn't know, what I wasn't prepared for, was that Rachel wasn't in the house anymore. She was in the hospital. Apparently, not long after I left, Rachel had called her sister. Told her everything. Broke down. And less than an hour after I walked out, our oldest daughter called Francine in a panic, saying Rachel wasn't making sense. Francine had rushed over. And the moment she saw Rachel's state, she called an ambulance. She told me all this over the phone when I got to my office. She said Rachel was at Santa Maria City Hospital. She said she'd been crying nonstop, couldn't eat, barely spoke. She was a wreck. And she urged me, begged me, to go see her. After I hung up, I just sat there. Stunned. Frozen. Had I really been so selfish? Did I really walk out on my family in their worst moment? Maybe. But at the same time, if I'd stayed that night, if I'd let myself lose control, I might have said something unforgivable. Or worse. Rachel may have been the one who destroyed our marriage, but I wasn't proud of the man I became last night either. Was I a coward? Was I just running away from everything? As I sat behind my desk, tears ran down my face. I wondered if I'd made the right call. If forgiveness was even an option. If there was any path back from this hell. This was Rachel's fault. Her choice. Her actions. But our daughters, they didn't deserve this. And breaking everything would destroy them too. There had to be another way. That's when the idea of forgiveness had started to take root, but not without consequences. After the shock of learning Rachel had been hospitalized wore off, I got in my car and drove straight to Santa Maria City Hospital. I didn't know what I was going to say. I had no plan. All I knew was that I needed to face this. I needed answers. I needed the truth, from her, in her own words. And now here I am, sitting by a hospital bed, listening to my wife pour out the pieces of our broken life. Rachel lay there, pale and exhausted, her voice barely above a whisper. As I sat by her side, she looked at me, eyes red from crying, and started to speak. She said something my mother once told me had been running through her mind since the breakdown. Cheaters always face the consequences, one way or another. She told me about our marriage, about how it started when we were just 20, young and deeply in love. She said we built a beautiful life, 2 daughters, a nice house, financial security. She knew I loved her, and she swore she always loved me, too. It all started changing when our youngest daughter turned 6. Rachel got a job at a nearby film studio. It was perfect for her, fluent in Ukrainian. With some acting experience from college, she became a voice translator for English films. She loved the work, and it paid well. Then came Victor. Victor Dino. Tall, handsome, late 20s, with that confident, easy charm. Blondish hair, smooth voice. Most of the women at the studio had a thing for him, but he didn't seem to notice. Victor had been born in the States, but his grandparents spoke fluent Ukrainian, so he was perfectly bilingual. He and Rachel started working closely, and before long, a friendship formed. That's when the trouble began. Rachel didn't see it coming. She told me she didn't even realize how deep she was falling at first. But soon she found herself thinking about Victor when she shouldn't have been. At first, he treated her just like everyone else. Strictly business. They worked well together. But then, he started tagging along on Friday nights out, the ones I thought were just girls' nights. That was her first mistake, she said, not telling me that the group had started including men. That Victor was among them. That she didn't want to share those evenings with me. She didn't want to share Victor with me, either. Eventually, things shifted. They got closer. Started confiding in each other. Personal stuff. Things she never shared with me. And then, one night on the dance floor, it happened. He kissed her. Not a friendly peck. Not a flirty nudge. A real kiss, slow, deep, unmistakable. That's when the line got crossed. The next Friday, he found an excuse to pull her away from the group. And in the back seat of his car, their chemistry exploded. That night, she said, they did things she never thought she'd do outside our marriage. From there, it escalated. Fast. Rachel admitted that every time she came home after one of those nights, she tried to make it up to me. She'd act loving, attentive, affectionate. But deep down, she knew she'd already betrayed me. And still, she couldn't stop. She worked with Victor every day. Avoiding him became impossible. They got used to sneaking kisses and hugs in quiet corners of the studio, away from prying eyes. At least, that was the idea. Rachel swore that, in her mind, what she had with Victor didn't change how she felt about me. That she would have laid down her life for me. That she never intended to hurt me. But she did. She said that physically, Victor offered a kind of freedom she never felt with me. Not because I didn't love her, but because she was always trying to protect how I saw her. She didn't want me to think less of her. With Victor, there were no expectations. No judgments. She admitted she did things with him that she'd never even imagined doing with me. And she said it wasn't about love, not real love. It was physical. Reckless. Thoughtless. It had been going on for 4 months by the time I caught them. Rachel said she and Victor were careless, too comfortable around coworkers. He didn't care. He wasn't married. But she should have. And yet she didn't stop. Even when the gossip started, even when people started noticing. She told me that no matter what, she now realized how wrong it all was. Even if I'd never caught them, she said, it would still have been one of the worst things she'd ever done. The night I found them in the car, that was the lowest point of her life, she said. She remembered the look in my eyes when I opened the door. She remembered the way I shut it again without a word. And she knew, in that moment, that our marriage was in real, serious trouble. I remember stepping right over Victor in my rush to get out of that car, desperate to catch up to Mark. But it was too late. By the time I made it halfway across the lot, he was already in his SUV, speeding off into the night, leaving me standing there, alone, under the streetlight. Up until that moment, I had always seen my love for Mark as this steady, unshakable fire, one that burned only for him. I believed he felt the same about me. And then Victor came along. That first kiss, it was like a rogue spark leaping from that fire and igniting something else entirely, something reckless, something dangerous. And still, I told myself it didn't change how I felt about Mark. I convinced myself that loving Victor didn't take anything away from the love I had for my husband. I compared it to how I loved our daughters. When our youngest was born, I loved her fiercely, but that didn't make me love our eldest any less. It's wild, the mental gymnastics we perform to justify our worst impulses. But loving your children and loving your spouse aren't the same. You don't stand at an altar and vow to your kids that you'll forsake all others. That vow is sacred. And I broke it. Still, I pushed all of that out of my mind while I played my games with Victor. Now, looking back, I understand that Mark doesn't see it the way I did then. And I don't blame him. If our roles were reversed, if he had been with another woman, I'd be shattered too. Emotions aren't logical. Sometimes, trying to rationalize them only makes it worse. Now I'm here, lying in a hospital bed. Every time I wake up, I remember what happened, and my chest tightens with guilt. I cry. I mourn. And then the nurse comes in and gives me something to help me sleep again. That sleep, it's the only peace I get these days. Dreamless, heavy, numb. There are moments I wish I could stay asleep forever. Just drift away and forget everything. But right before I slip under each time, I always see the same image burn into my mind, our wedding photo. Mark and me, smiling at each other like nothing could ever go wrong. That image crushes me, breaks me, and brings me back to reality. I can't leave. I won't leave. I have to fight, because Mark and our daughters are still here. They're alive. I'm alive. And that means I still have a chance. I remember something my father once said. If you stop fighting, you don't deserve to live. So I will fight. Not for Victor, not for that fantasy. For Mark. For our daughters. Because they're the loves of my life. Victor? He's nothing now. A mistake. A lie. He never should have been in my life in the first place. If Mark ever finds it in his heart to forgive me, if he gives me that second chance, I swear I'll be the wife I used to be. The one who never strayed. The one who chose him every single day. I don't know how long I'll be stuck here in this bed. But I know one thing. When I open my eyes for good, when I finally go home, I hope the first face I see is Mark's. I want to look him in the eyes and begin the long, painful process of making things right. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to earn my way back into our family's world. And until that day comes, I'll keep holding on. If anyone out there is listening, please pray for Mark. And for our daughters. They deserve peace, even if I don't.